Okay, and this uh, first game is against Lucille. Once more, he's a member of the real Mensters, and he's playing with his new purple Kaiser nail deck. Uh, so I'm going first. I start off with Labramon and TK. Honestly, I don't have a lot of great stuff in my security. Uh, it's all pretty weak here, so I was debating if I should get the Mistymon, but we played a couple of games before that, and I was struggling to clear his board, so I decided to take the Misty just in case. And so, after that, he's up. And he goes into Impmon, which, you often want to see early on in purple. Not a bad start, honestly. And he drops a Devimon, but then he doesn't have anything to follow it up with, so he just passes turn. It wasn't really a great start for him, but he said after the fact that the thing that didn't really bother him too much about that was I was going to get the 3 with TK anyway, so it felt less bad for him, but still not a good position to start with. I decided to just go into Gatomon and Magna-Angemon. I was debating between Gatomon and another champion, I believe, but I thought that the DP would be good, especially because I was considering which Mega to go into, and I had the choice between Slash Angemon and Magnadramon, and so I thought that if I decided to go into Slash Angemon, it would be good to have the DP gained from Gatomon. So he swung into my security and hit a TK, which is arguably the worst thing he could have hit there because he really wanted his Impmon to die so he could start milling those cards and get a better discard pile. But it didn't work out that way. Like I said, I didn't have anything good in my security, so I took the Patamon to try to make my security a little less weak, so at least some of his stuff like Devimon would die in there. But again, following that, he really didn't have a play, so he just opted to pass turn. So then I came up, and at this point I'm just debating which Mega to play, and so I'm trying to think if it's better to totally clear his board or if I want to go with a more aggressive play and start attacking his security. And in previous games, one of the issues I was finding with this deck is that it can struggle to take out security. So I decided that it would probably be better to get into the security quickly. And so, after thinking about it for a bit and contemplating which move would be the best, I ultimately decided to go with Magnetramon. And so then I swung into the security with Magna-Angemon's effect killing the Impmon, allowing me to draw for my Labramon and making my Magnadramon 14k, so even if he had a Millennium Mon in there, I would have been safe. And it was a Piedmon, which made me really happy that I didn't choose to go into Slash Angemon, because he would have just died there and I would have lost that whole stack. So after that, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to end my turn. Uh, I'm nervous with this deck to against his deck, I should say, to hard cast too much stuff just because he has that blue mat that gives him memory um if I have a Digimon with no sources, but I still felt that since it wasn't on the board at the time, Patamon would be a good choice because I really want to develop him. And so he decided to drop Piedmon and get his board sort of in a more covered state, which is it's an expensive play, but often it pays off for him because he'll end up just being able to overwhelm me with the sheer amount of bodies he can put on the board, especially if he can get Piedmon off multiple times thanks to Kaiser Nail, which is also why I try to put a stop to that as quickly as possible. And so I go ahead and evolve that Patamon up. I contemplate how I want to play this. If I want to, I know I'm going to slash. I'm just contemplating what to slash, and I decide to take out the blocker because I'm going to try. I still have a way to remove the Piedmon, so I'm not too concerned, and I just want to get into his security. And so I swing with the Magnadramon first to play around 7 Heavens. Sorry, I should say Trump Sword, just in case that's on his security. I'd rather lose the Slash Angemon than the Magnadramon. Luckily for me, it's just a Wizardmon. Unluckily for me, after this swing, which does kill the Gabumon since I used 2 Magna Angemon effects on it, unluckily I hit a Piedmon in there, so Slash Angemon ended up dying anyway. It turns out playing around the Trump Sword played into, security RNG, which happens. And so then I just dropped a 7 Heavens to kill the Piedmon so he couldn't Millennium Mon my Magnadramon, and I get to draw a card because of Labramon's effect. And so now he's got 4 memory and just a couple of rookies on board with no clear path to how he's going to take out my Magnadramon. So he goes into Wizardmon, and he thinks on it for a bit because he doesn't have a lot of great plays here. Losing that Piedmon really hurt him, which is one of the reasons that I actually run the 7 Heavens in this deck at 4, because I noticed cards like Piedmon being just really problematic for this deck to deal with. So being able to just take out those hard casts is super helpful, especially because you can check it off security. So he drops the Blue Tamer Mat to sort of set up future Kaiser Nails and to make it so I have to think twice about hard casting Digimon. And he considers passing turn, but then decides against it. He decides to evolve into a Chimeramon, which he didn't really want to do. He sort of, wanted to have a target for it, but he decided that having an ultimate on the board was just much more valuable for him at this moment. So I decided to bring out my Patamon because I figured might as well start developing that, and I'm not too worried about him dropping Chimeramon, because if he does, then so be it, because he has to spend a lot of memory and I'm in a really good position right now. So then I swing into security and I'm just hoping it's not a Trump sword. It's a Beelzemon, which is not big enough to kill Magnadramon. I considered swinging with the Gatomon to get him to 0, but I decided against it. I just thought it would be better to save it to develop it. No need to rush things. And so I just decided to 7 Heavens, kill the Chimeramon so that he couldn't develop that into a Mega, because I knew that he must have really been desperate for that. With as much as he's been passing, he must probably have a bunch of Megas in hand. So I didn't want him to ever be able to see Millenniummon, which would have been a lot of trouble for me. So after thinking for a bit, he decides to just Heat Viper my Gatomon, so I at the very least don't have lethal on board next turn. And he gets a draw out of it. But he's still really not in a great position, and he needs to do something if he's going to turn the game around. And unfortunately, he, rather than doing something, he just passes turn. And so I go into Kyaramon, evolve to Patamon, and then swing for his last security. And it's another mat, so now I really don't want to hard cast, which is why I don't just hard cast my blocker right now, which I do have in hand. So instead I decide to take the better route, which is hard cast Tsukai, and then evolve into the blocker, leaving him at just 1 memory. So now I know there's virtually nothing he can do to come back. He doesn't have a way to gain memory, so he can't Piedmon. Trump Sword's not going to save him. He drops the Trump Sword anyway to kill the Unimon, just as a sort of, last, not even a desperate attempt, but just sort of a last show of defiance. And so my turn comes. I just unsuspend, bring out the Patamon, and swing for game with the Magnadramon. So in terms of my thoughts on this game, I thought that it went well for me. Obviously, you look at that game and it's not a great hand for him, but you still do get to see what happens with the deck in terms of being able to deny your opponent of getting to keep the things on board that they want to keep on board. And honestly, a bad hand like that for purple for purple Kaiser Nail specifically, is still a decent hand for most other decks. Because even though he was having to pass a bunch, a single Piedmon could have potentially got him back in the game if I didn't have a response in the form of 7 Heavens. But luckily I did multiple times to stop him from ever getting to a level that would have threatened me. If I didn't have those, then he totally could have turned the game around, because purple's just that explosive, and especially with Kaiser Nail, because you can play your Chimeramons multiple times and clear the board. You can play your Piedmons multiple times and just flood the field with Digimon. So it's definitely a case where if you don't stop them from gaining momentum, they're just going to steamroll you. And so that's exactly what I tried to do. So, yeah, it was a good game. And even though the yellow deck is still kind of shaky, I would say that it's the way it's built now is about as good as it's gonna get, I think. And I think that it's good enough to at least, get a few games off of a top tier deck like that one. And this game was against Lucille's Rookie Rush deck. I went ahead and went first. Started off with a Patamon and an Angemon. I was looking to get my memory gain up as much as possible to counteract Rookie Rush's efficiency. I wanted to make sure that, I was able to get as much value on my turns as possible. He opens up with, of course, Upamon, because that's the only egg that he plays. And goes into just a standard Gomamon. And then he finishes off his opening turn with 2 rookies. Which, that's that's the job of Rookie Rush, I guess. Rush those rookies. So, my turn. I come out. And I've got some tough decisions to make because I don't want him rushing me, but the only way to stop him from rushing me is going to be to do something a little bit drastic. So I do it. I drop a 7 Heavens on Armadillomon, which it seems crazy, but it made the most sense to me at the time. It sort of helped to control how much aggression he could have on the board. So then he goes into a Leomon. And swings into my security with it, hoping it'll die so he can get some more memory. But it does not die. So he gets no memory from that. He Hammer Sparks up. And then he drops a Gomamon. And he goes into Gorillamon to pass a turn to me. And I am assuming that the reason that he didn't attack with Elecmon is because he was afraid of me playing Kari and getting extra memory off of that, which is also something that I probably would have done because I did have Kari. So I go into my Patamon to draw. And well, it's not a super great board position for me right now. So I think that this is the point where I have to really think about what my next move is going to be, because I need to make sure that he doesn't run away with things before I have time to set up, because let's be honest, Rookie Rush doesn't let you set up very much. So I'm just sitting there thinking, what can I do to prevent that? My Digimon's too weak to run over his Leomon. His other Digimon are unsuspended. And he can take at least 3 security from me next turn if he goes all out. So I decide to just drop another 7 Heavens. This time on the Leomon, because I'd rather him gain the 2 memory on my terms rather than his own. And I don't think that unless he has Puppetmon, there's a whole lot he'd be able to do here. especially since Rookie Rush doesn't tend to run Zudomon as much anymore. And there's that Kari that I was talking about, which worked out really well for me. Because now it means I'm going to start my turns with more memory regardless of what he does. So he drops a Veggie and a Puppet to try to threaten lethal. That puts me to 9 because of Kari's effect. He was at 3, and that put me to 8, but then Kari gives me that extra +1, which is going to come up in a moment because he's going to be wondering why I'm at 9 instead of at 8. So, again, position looks a little precarious, but it's still possible to turn it around because Yellow recovers a lot. So as long as I play this right, comeback is still doable. So after thinking about my possibilities for a moment, I decide to drop an Angemon to put me to 4, and then gain 1 from the Patamon that's under my Angemon, killing his Elecmon, so now he no longer threatens lethal. Then he asks about the memory, and we go back and forth on it for a minute. I forget that the reason I got there was because of Kari. So I go to the 8, then I go to the 3, then I go back up to the 4, and then I go to the 5 because I'm like, there's the Kari too. So with that little thing out of the way, and it is an important thing to remember, try to remember all the sources of your memory because sometimes these disputes do come up when you're in a game. So it's good to remember what's giving you what. I drop a second Kari, and this is actually a move that I like a lot. I go ahead and recover here. That way, not only can he not take me out, but now, if he does choose to attack me, he's giving me the activations of Kari. So basically, this is what I was talking about in the deck profile, with Kari acting as a pseudo blocker. I take the move back as I reconsider it, but ultimately, I don't think of a better move, so I do it. But like I was saying, regarding Kari as a sort of pseudo blocker, by being at above 3 memory, or sorry, 3 security, the opponent has to really think about, do they want to give you that extra memory every turn, or do they want to wait until they have lethal on the board and just swing all out at you? And so that's the position he finds himself in right now. So he decides to swing in with the Puppetmon, because it's a relatively safe swing, and he's getting rid of one of my Digimon, the Angemon. Puts himself up to 6 because of Puppetmon's effect. He drops a Goblimon. He doesn't have a lot in hand right now because he hasn't had the opportunity to draw very much since he hasn't been digivolving. You notice he's doesn't have a blue rookie at the moment to evolve his Upamon, and I've been killing his Digimon, and he's been having to hard cast, so he has not had the chance to really rebuild his hand. And so I go ahead and swing into his Puppetmon so I can remove that threat. And again, he's not swinging into me because if my security kills him, I'll be getting a bunch of memory, and he's really got no chance for comeback. It's better for him to sort of keep his board established and just try to draw into some puppet mons to lock down my board. And so I got the Gatomon, so now I have a Patamon effect live again. He's contemplating if he wants to let me have my Karis be live so that he can get me down a little lower, and he decides to swing for it, and it's a Unimon killing his Goblimon. He then opts to pass turn rather than swing with the other two and leave himself open for a board clear. I think he also swung with the Goblimon because he knew that a Mistymon or an Angemon would have just one-shotted it, so it's better to lose it to security than to have it just keep sitting there. So once more, I went ahead and evolved to Recover, putting myself up to 4 again. That way, again, Kari's acting as that pseudo blocker. And then I'm just I start swinging in with the Magna Angemon. It's actually the first security I've taken from him all game. It's just an Elecmon. And I start thinking about, do I want to swing in with the Angelwomon, or do I really want to risk losing that, especially when I have a Slash Angemon in my hand? So ultimately, I decide that it's not worth losing, and I just go into the Slash, killing his Vegemon. That way he loses access to Flower Cannon, just in case he's in a situation where it would have been helpful to him. He can still, of course, activate it from the security, but he can no longer activate it from hand. And I regain a memory because of Patamon, so it's still my turn. So I just finished with a Salamon, so now I'm threatening lethal on the next turn. And again, he hasn't been drawing, so he drops 2 Hammer Sparks, put himself up to 4, drop a Gorillamon, put me to 2, so that he at least has this board established. And now he's really hoping that there's Flower Cannon in that security, because otherwise this is going to be the game. And so I swing in with the Magnadramon, and it's not Flower Cannon. Swinging with the Slash. And do keep in mind, if there is a Flower Cannon in there and he can draw into Puppetmon, he can still very much win this game, because a couple of Puppetmons against my whole board being suspended would win him everything. But unfortunately for him, none of those were Flower Cannons, which means Labramon can go uncontested to win me the game. And he did have a Flower Cannon in his hand, but that wasn't really doing him much good in this situation. So overall, I really liked this game to show what this can do against Rookie Rush, because that's like such a dominant force in the meta, and you can see that this has the potential to deny them of their ability to evolve, their ability to swarm, and their ability to just create advantage with their Puppetmon. I've also got the ability to recover a lot, which is then stopping them from overwhelming me before I can get my board set up, and it's causing them to burn out faster than they normally would, which is one of the dangers of playing Rookie Rush. So with that being said, I do think that in terms of the meta, while this deck isn't the best, it is very good against Rookie Rush. And I think that if you're playing in a meta where Rookie Rush is really prevalent, maybe your locals has a few Rookie Rush players, this might be a good deck to take there, and you could end up taking the tournament, or at least a couple of matches that they wouldn't expect you to normally take. So, with all that being said, I'll see you guys later. Peace.